Okay. I think we're recording, which of course is time for me to freeze up. But this is David Hoffman, and I'm going to talk a little bit about an experience I had when I got very sick and had what some people call a near-death experience, or I like to call it a death in return experience because that seems more accurate to me. But anyway, I'm going to lead into it a little bit with in the first month or two of 2022, I got very sick. I thought my shoulder and neck started hurting just unbearably, and went to the doctor. They thought it was a muscle strain or whatever, and misdiagnosed it for a while, and then it got worse and worse. And finally ended up going to the hospital, and after a little while of trying to figure it out, they said, well, you have a very rare infection in your spine, but IV antibiotics should take care of it, and we caught it in time to do something about it. But it was very serious, and the pain was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. So they put me on all these IV antibiotics, and numbers started going the right direction until they didn't. And when they didn't, this infection just started eating away at my spine, eating away the bones, basically, of my neck and upper spine. So I'm in the hospital at that point, and they say, well, there's nothing we can do except this very long surgery, about an 8-hour surgery to put all sorts of screws and rods and plates in your neck, and all sorts of screws in your spine, because basically my spine was just collapsing in on itself. So one lead into this is I think I had someone help me to go through this experience, which was my housekeeper in the hospital, Velma. Velma came in one day, her first time in my room, and she came and said, wow, it's so light outside today, because it had been gloomy. This was March or April of something. It was very gloomy, and she opened the curtains, and I did something I just don't do. I just started singing to her. I was singing, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." I don't know why I did it, except that she started singing with me and became absolutely drunk with the idea of God. And I think what it did, it caused her to trust me and let who she really was come out. And she had so much love for God and for Jesus that she was just drunk with God. And every time she came into the room, we'd talk again, and the same thing would happen. It was just she was beside herself, and I've never seen this happen with a human being, but it got me. I've always had a spiritual side to me, but I think this really jump-started it, especially going through what I was in the hospital. So then they scheduled the surgery. As I said, it was going to take 8 hours. I think it took a little longer than that even. So, you're waiting around on this gurney for hours, and I'm trying to get myself in the proper frame of mind for this, which is, I was sitting there meditating and praying, and as I said, for hours, getting pretty deep into it. And then they gave me the anesthesia, and I was out. But I didn't go out. I went somewhere else. And I didn't have and I don't know when this happened because time, all during this experience, time was in flux. I could not have told you how long any of this took, whether it was 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 hours. It Time meant nothing at this point. But the first feeling I had was I couldn't even see anything yet. I just felt this overwhelming sense of well-being, of everything was right. And as we know in the world, that doesn't happen very often, where everything just seems totally right. I didn't have an experience where I was looking at my own body from above or wandering through the hospital. It was like my body was just like taking off a sweater. It meant that little to me at that point. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about, am I dead or anything else, because nothing changed. The way I felt, the way my goofy mind was working, nothing changed except that I didn't have a physical body anymore. And because of the freeing up of that, it felt really, really good. And it's a feeling that's just, it's impossible to describe, because there's nothing like it that I've felt before. So after a little while, images started to coalesce before my vision, and I was somewhere else, and I was somewhere that was intensely more colorful and more beautiful than anything on earth. Everything was lit from within. There was no one light source, like, you go outside and the sun hits you and it creates shadows some places, and other areas of intense light. There was none of that. It was the most vivid, beautiful colors, all lit from within, all clear, so much more clear than anything you'd see with your physical eyes. So I knew this was pretty special, and as I said, I had no feeling of loss, and this was, it was not, oh man, I don't have a body anymore. I did not miss my body, because everything was contained within me. I didn't miss any person, any event in my life, because they were all there. There was nothing to miss. There was nothing absent, which is a pretty wonderful feeling. And then I was sitting before Jesus, and I knew it was Jesus. He looked like Jesus, and our conceptions of him, and he didn't. It was just hard to, but I instantly knew who this was. And my first impression was that, wow, this guy is everything that everyone said he was, and just looking and being in total awe, in a familiar way, not in a real sense of separateness, like this being is so much more wonderful than any of us, but just in a very human way in that point. I mean, so I'm looking at him and just silently communing for a while. My second impression is okay, this goes way beyond what anyone's conception of him was, into um, unthinkable amount of presence. I can't even begin to describe uh, the kind of love and power and well-being. I keep saying, I keep using that because that was the overwhelming quality. So I'm just sitting there looking, and again, this is one of the stranger things I thought about it was that my mind, my consciousness, was exactly the same as it was. I still had my own goofy mind. Like, I thought at one point, well, I'm sitting here in front of Jesus. I should ask him something. I should glean some words of wisdom here, even though there was no real reason to do that because everything was being communicated. But, again, your mind, you're still there. The only thing I was missing was my physical body. Everything else was there. So, okay. And I did want to know this because what I could sense about this particular place is there was nothing unharmonious. There was no real. Well, it was beyond good and bad. But if you have to say anything, there was no bad. So I came up with a question. I said, so can evil exist here? And Jesus kind of chuckled a little bit. Yeah, Jesus laughed at me. He laughed at me. Said, just a little chuckle. Said, well, how could evil exist in this sort of environment? Answered the question. So I had one more follow-up question, and something maybe a lot of people wonder about. Maybe they don't. But I said, well, so will everyone end up here? And the answer was a one-word answer. Yes. That was it. That was the whole answer. Nothing else needed to be said. At that point, I sensed that there's something behind me that I need to see. So I stood up and turned around, and there's a group of people that went to the horizon. Just, I don't know how many thousands of people standing there. In the front were saints of all religions. It especially appeals to me. All Saints' Day is my favorite religion. I like the idea of that. And there were Christian nuns and monks. There were Indian sadhus. There was Native Americans. There was anything you could think of. They were just all saints, as far as you could see, all smiling at me, all welcoming. It was like, wow, this is quite a welcoming committee. And then, as I started looking further into the crowd, I could sense that a lot of the crowd further back were friends, relatives, even pets of past lives. As I said, thousands, all the way to the horizon. So I was just, and I'm still getting this feeling of well-being is getting even stronger, and I'm losing all attachment to the world. I had no desire. No, I didn't even think about, well, I'm dead, or I need to go back, or What are people going to do without me? Or what am I going to do without them? There was no thought of that because everything was here. Everything was here. So, again, time is swayed. I don't know how long I was there. It seems like a long time. And then, all of a sudden, I was in a void. But it wasn't a black void. It wasn't a dark void. It was, boy, hard to describe. A void full of everything. It was full of everything. I no longer had even the astral body that I'd had when I was in this other place. It was, I could only feel three things, and the Hindus have a word for this, which is Satchitananda, which is Sat is existence. I knew I existed. Consciousness, that's the Chit. I was conscious that I existed. And an overwhelming feeling of bliss, but not a bliss of just being satisfied or a feeling like it was all encompassing and ever changing, ever developing. It was a place you'd want to be in for, it certainly was a lot better. And again, it's not really describable except that your sense of well-being just keeps getting more and more and more. And as I said, I didn't feel separate from anyone or anything. It was all contained right there in this void of light or void of consciousness, whatever it was. Then I'm back before Jesus, and Jesus and one of the saints were having a little bit of a debate. I could tell it was about me, and they were talking this beautiful, very strange language, which of course I didn't know, but I could understand what they were saying. And the saint was saying something like, well, he made it here, he made it up here, why can't he just stay? And he was trying to make that point, and I was on his side, come on. And Jesus was saying, no, he's got to go back and finish some stuff. And it went on for a while, and finally the saint threw up his hands, not in just, okay, you win, At that point, at that instant, I felt, I heard my nurse's voice, very, very, very faintly, say, David. And just to strengthen the point that I was still my same goofy self, is that I had a really a great answer to this. I heard this, David, and I'm sure I didn't say it out loud, but I said it in my mind. I said, he's not here. Really smart. Yeah. Heard again, David, a little louder. Well, I'm here, but I'm not coming back. Third time, a little louder. And at that point, I felt myself go back into my body, and my consciousness become attached to the body again. And basically that was the experience. It sure did seem real. It seemed more real than this does. And that's basically what happened. Of course, you try to tell the people people around you what happened, and most people are either don't want to hear it, or uh, they're humoring you. You know, it's like they're there. You know, it's okay. You know, but anyway, uh, basically that was my experience in experiencing another world. Um, I would recommend the experience if you ever have to if you ever given something like this. It changed my perspective, of course, towards life, and that's what happened. So I thank you all for listening, and I'm going to sign off now. And everyone, please have a very blessed day.